All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA prop betting video. Have you guys covered here with this Thursday slate? This is kind of an interesting slate in the sense that we're not getting any like big name players out, so we're not going to get a lot of value in that regard. Although I do think the board overall today is a decently appealing. I think we're getting some pretty good edges, at least as I'm recording this video. Just a quick recap from yesterday, guys. Ended up going 4 for 6 on the day. Unfortunately, the two college basketball prop bets that we were on that I decently liked ended up missing. We had one player, I think he went like 0 for 8 in the first half, just terrible production there. And then our other college basketball player ended up getting a foul trouble, fouled out in a game that ended up going into OT. Very much annoying. And that counted as some turnovers for him as well. So he had like 5 turnovers and like 2 of them were offensive fouls. So a little bit annoying there. But on the flip side, that guy's very good day NBA wise. All the Cleveland Cavaliers bets I thought were very big edges for us ended up hitting. So overall, pretty solid day NBA wise. 4 for 6 on the day. Obviously, we'll take that 4 for 6 hit rate. Throughout the whole year, we'll take that. But looking at today's slate, guys, we'll start off here with the first game, which is going to be Milwaukee versus Washington. And obviously, this is going to be an interesting game for kind of both teams because they're both banged up here. As you'll see, guys, Giannis is obviously still out there for the Bucks, and then you also have Kevin Porter Jr. still out for the Bucks. And then Gary Harris is out, and then Cole Anthony listed as day-to-day. Now, I do gotta say, I started off the video with this. Obviously, being a Bucks fan, do people take Shams seriously with his reporting? Like as a Bucks fan, like when you see the lies that this guy has made around Giannis is, I shouldn't say lies. The way he misconstrues what's going on is very disingenuous. And it's just weird to me that he gets away with it. Like every other NBA reporter has to come out and say, well, Giannis has not demanded a trade. Actually, Giannis is not going to be traded. Actually, Giannis wants to stay in Milwaukee. The fact that this has been happening, and I've touched on this a decent amount throughout this channel, the fact that this has happened for like 7 straight years now, it's just, I feel like people have to be annoyed with it. No, I will say, this year, right now, is like the first time it's actually felt like it's actually plausible. Something that could happen. And that's just because he's been dealing with this leg injury. And if that's going to be a long-term injury there for Giannis, it does make sense to think about potentially moving on from him. If someone's going to throw you a trade offer that you can't resist, sure, it makes sense to entertain some trades if he is going to be banged up. But coming from Shams with those reports, it's like, okay, we know to ignore this. He's not a reliable source, at least when it comes to Giannis. And he has specifically said multiple times that when it comes to Giannis, there are no sources, that he has no sources when it comes to Giannis. So all he's saying when he makes up those reports is literally that. It's like Adam Scheffner. This is another Packer, Wisconsin bias here. Adam Scheffner, when it came to Aaron Rodgers, I forget what it was, but he was like, it's based off an accumulation of information. So I'm just making up the report. No sources. I'm just making it up. Yeah, because ESPN needs some clicks. It's funny. I hope, I hope this ends up being like the Dallas trade with Anthony Davis and Luka. I hope the NBA is rigging it for the Bucks. Be like, hey, Bucks, we're going to try to force a trade out of your superstar player, arguably the best player in the league. We're going to try to force a trade out, but hey, we'll give you some really good picks. We'll give you some really good action on the back end of this if you just allow us to really drum up the media narrative. So apologies for the little rant there, guys. I wanted to get that out to you guys. I don't know. It's just interesting how you see something like that. It's like, okay, that's actually what's going on. But anyways, we'll jump on into the bets here, guys. So obviously, Giannis, yes, he's out. Another interesting player that could end up being out here is actually going to be Gary Harris. Okay, so then you also have Cole Anthony, who's listed as questionable. It might not seem like much, but Gary Harris just being confirmed out, and then obviously Porter and Giannis being out, does actually make some of the guards a little bit more appealing for the Bucks. Specifically, Cole Anthony, if he does end up getting a little bit of a minutes bump. If we jump on into the top prop bets that we were getting here for the Bucks, guys, Cole Anthony for over his points and rebounds is actually the best bet that we are currently getting. And I do think that that's somewhat appealing. Oops, got to change the slide here. There we go. And so, yeah, just looking at it, guys, it really does depend on the amount of minutes that he ends up getting. Projected for 18 minutes here. He's someone that could end up getting more run than this. And if he does, then obviously we do like the over. Now, it does end up being a pretty good matchup, I would say, um, going against Washington. And so, just looking at based off his projected minutes, he is someone that is projected to get this over. So, ultimately, I do think that that ends up being a pretty solid bet for us to try to target here. I'm trying to edit the text here. I don't. It never lets me do this live. There we go. All right. So yeah, I don't mind this one. If he ends up, being active, that's fine. Obviously, we were on Ryan Rollins, and really all the Bucks in the last game, guys, with the first game of Giannis and Kevin Porter Jr. being off the court. Just worth calling out kind of the production once again, I think. So we'll start with Rollins. Rollins, guys, per 36 averages 25 points per 36 with those two players off the court. So we saw in the last game a little bit lower than what he averages per 36 with Kevin Porter and also Giannis off the court. 24 there. Ended up with a decent amount of shot attempts, 9 for 17. Again, that's kind of what you would expect. That's basically the prototypical game for him there. He actually had a little bit less assists than you would expect him to get. Typically he's averaging a little bit more than this per 36 with Giannis and Kevin Porter Jr. off the court. More than what he got in the last game, which was 4. Typically he is averaging closer to 7.5. So ends up being a normal line, I would say. They're giving the matchup maybe if you're someone that bets on traditional sites and wants to take a little bit of a risk there, you could. But I think if you want to bet on Ryan Rollins, you begin to his over points or potentially even his over fantasy score. He's someone that's just going to have heavy usage, guys. Averages 44.5 fantasy points per 36. I do think that this game could be a game in which you'd want a game stack. And so that'd be a spot where I would get to Rollins for over his fantasy score if you guys want to do that. Then we have Kyle Kuzma going against his former team, the Washington Wizards. And I do like the idea of betting on his over fantasy score here. Part of the appeal for me is the underdog line here of 33.4. So that's obviously much higher than what PrizePicks is presenting. Now, the data is not really going to like him based off of his averages, okay, because he is someone that, let's face it, when Porter and Giannis are on the court, he is not as appealing. It's very ugly there. We do see in the last game, guys went for 42.5. The concern would be that even if he does end up getting enough minutes, he might not get the over. Now, per 36 wise, he does average 35.7 fantasy points per 36, does average 18.7 points per 36 as well. So he's appealing there in that regard. Even his over rebounds is somewhat appealing. He just doesn't have a long leash right now under Doc Rivers. So there is a little bit of concern there, but I think just in a game stack, this one has a 51.6% chance that I like it. So maybe you use this with Rollins with his overs as well. Gary Trent, we're not really getting much spots for, although he's someone where, if Cole Anthony ends up sitting, those minutes most likely will just end up going to Gary Trent, and then he's going to shoot a decent amount of 3 balls. We know he gets the minutes with Giannis off the court, ended up with 21. Like he's going to be forcing to get in some minutes there, and so I wouldn't hate him as someone we could bet on. And then Miles Turner, just worth calling out. He did have a better game in the last game. He is someone that, again, it's kind of some random spike games here and there, but for the most part, it does seem like he is improving here after really just a slow start. And again, it's a good matchup. I could see trying to chase some of his overs. The best over bet that we have is really over 17.5 points and assists or his over rebounds and assists, basically a toss-up. I would rather get to his points prop bet, so if we're going to do that. And then we just zoom out, guys. We're going to take a peek at some of the Washington prop bets that we're getting. I will say nothing great, but also nothing terrible as well. Like Chris Middleton, guys, especially in a game stack, especially if we're using Kuzma, I don't mind the idea of attacking some of the overs that we are getting for him. This one has went up a little bit. It started at 23.5. Now it's at 24.5, so I don't necessarily love that. He is someone that I will say minutes projection probably a little bit too low, but that's also because lately he's been seeing his minutes spike up. And it wouldn't be surprising to see him get less minutes, although he does have a game against his former team, right? And so you kind of just expect him to show up in a game against his former team. So I do end up liking the over fantasy score still, even though, they bumped that up, which is annoying to me. And then they also did that with his points, rebounds, and assists. This was at 18.5 to start the day. Still don't hate it for the over 19.5 guys. Obviously with him, it's twofold. Will the minutes be there? And also, will he be hitting his shots? If he's hitting his shots, he should be able to get all the overs as well. Okay. I do like the fantasy score still, 24.5. Be interested to see what underdog line would be if they come out with one for him. Typically, underdog is sticking to more of studs with the lines that they come out with. This is interesting. Jalen Johnson just ruled out. That'll be interesting for the Hawks there. Let's go ahead and jump on into the next game here. We got Sacramento versus Philly. And so in this game, guys, they're with us not having confirmed injuries here. Like if Westbrook and Monk do end up playing, then it is tougher to get to some of the spots here. Now, we do have Monk projected to sit here. If Westbrook were to sit as well, then we're looking at LaVine, DeMar DeRozan to be much more appealing. But at the same time, if Westbrook is active, he's a player that we want to be looking at just in regards to his usage going up. Now, the issue that we have as well is that we haven't really seen Monk off the court with Sabonis on the court as well that much this season, with Westbrook also on the court. So kind of just a different shakeup there with the lineup. And then for Philly, guys, Paul George, probable for Thursday. Embiid, probable. So I guess we expect them to play. It wouldn't be surprising to see one of them randomly sit. We have seen that a bunch this year already. So just be on the lookout for that if anything changes there. But yeah, we'll go ahead and take a peek at some of the other or some of the bets that we're getting here in this game, guys. So again, some of these bets that we're getting for like DeMar DeRozan, for Zach LaVine are appealing to me, especially if Westbrook sits. Then I think we just be happy to get to these, but it is a little bit risky without having that confirmation. So like LaVine over 16.5 points would end up being a bet I would want to get to if for sure Westbrook were to sit. With Monk being out, that should raise up his minutes. Projected for 33 minutes. Obviously, if he does end up getting those minutes, much more appealing there, guys. He averages 19 points when he gets this many minutes, and he's gotten the over 59% of the time. So appealing there in that regard for sure. Again, little risk reward. And then just real quickly, yes, I wanted to take a peek at some of the Westbrook bets. What's his best over bet right now? Over 19.5 points and assists. Has a 51.5% chance to hit. Again, with Monk being out, I don't mind the idea of getting to this one, assuming that they can keep the game close enough for long enough. So it is worth calling out, guys, 11.5 point spread. And so that could limit the amount of minutes that someone like Westbrook gets. And obviously, if that ends up happening, then he's not going to get this over, as we saw when he got 22 and 27 minutes. So that's always a concern. 230 game total, so not terrible there. Overall, again, with Monk being out, I do end up liking the idea of getting to that spot there with Westbrook. And then there was, Paul George over 3.5 assists is a bet that I like in the spot here as well, guys. They are 11.5 point favorites. So kind of just with them being heavy favorites, that means buckets are going in. It means Paul George should be able to get over 3.5 assists. But that was really the only bet that I like for Philly, guys. To me, all the other lines were a little bit too thin for Philly. And again, with the Kings, it's a little bit of risk reward betting on Westbrook to play or sit, the bets that you might want to get to there. So let's go ahead now and jump on into the next game. So I got to see this Jalen Johnson news on my end. Not saying you're wrong. I just need to see it as well. But yes, we know that Porzingis is still out, Reichster is still out, and Nika probably, I don't know, questionable. We haven't projected for minutes. Yeah, he's out. Okay, so he's out now. And then, yes, Jalen Johnson, questionable. I'm seeing that now. And so, that makes that a different spot, that's for sure. Oh, man. So I'm not going to refresh this, guys, right now. But we'll get into some of the bets that we're getting here in this game. That definitely changes this game here. Let me real quickly, obviously I'm doing the slide. Let me real quickly take a peek at kind of the per 36 production with those players off the court. So very interesting there. So Inika out. Well, I'll toss in Johnson out as well. So we'll do Johnson and Inika out. That's really the biggest players in regards to the minutes that we've seen this year. And so Guy A is obviously, yeah, someone that would benefit there. Not too many minutes with those two players off the court, guys, for Atlanta. It's actually really tough to say who's going to benefit. It is Guy A for sure. That's someone that's more of a DFS play. Luke Kennard a little bit, like picks up some usage, but I don't want to bet on Luke Kennard. Geez, that is ugly. Dyson Daniels probably. Oh boy. So yeah, let's take a peek at Daniels. So Daniels does pick up about a minute more, a point more per 36, and about 2.3 more assists per 36, about a bump of 2% in his usage. Fantasy points does go up by about 6.3. So per 36 wise, Daniels does average 40 fantasy points per 36. So I'm assuming that Prize Space is pulling these lines. I'm assuming most of these are going to be bets that get updated or are just not there right now. So if this one stays about the same at 33.5, I think we can get there. Obviously, the concern with Nika being out and with the potential that Jalen Johnson does end up saying, yeah, he's questionable. Then if Johnson sits, that creates a higher likelihood for the game to be a blowout. And I think that's going to reduce the game total a decent amount. But overall, guys, Daniels is appealing here. Even in the tough matchup, even with the potential for him to get less minutes because of the blowout, he is still someone that should get a decent amount of run. But are we getting any other spots here for Atlanta? Corey Kispert? No, we're not going to be betting. I don't hate it. He's not someone that would. If Johnson's out, he definitely needs to get more minutes. A little interesting. I don't love it. Not something I want to go crazy with there. Yeah, it feels a little too thin. Let's get into the cover boy. Let's jump into the other side of this game. So guys, Tari Eason, I'm thinking he's going to sit after getting his over fantasy score for us yesterday. That doesn't really mean too much for like Eamon Thompson, who is again the cover boy. I do like the idea of getting to some of the over bets for him. I was thinking actually with Tari Eason, we could be looking at Jabari Smith. But overall, I kind of like the spots that we're getting with Eamon Thompson just in general. Again, now with the potential that Johnson could sit, maybe that reduces the minutes for Thompson a little bit. But if it's going to be a blowout, he'd be part of the reason as to why. And typically speaking, guys, his minutes have still been there as well. So overall, we do still end up liking the spot. Eamon Thompson, the only slight concern that I have is Vegas is giving this basically a 50-50 split. You guys know by now, I tend to like to chase bets that have a 51% chance or better for the over to hit at the very least. Obviously, we're trying to target bets that have a 54% likely to hit, but I'm okay getting to that one. I'm kind of okay riding the hot hand there. And he's someone where, it's not much, but underdog has the line 0.5 higher. That could end up being the difference between it cashing or not cashing. So just kind of riding the hot hand there with him. And we'll be on the lookout for that news there in Atlanta. Obviously, that would change some things. Let's go ahead now and jump on into Miami versus Chicago, guys. So this is a weird spot with us not knowing whether or not for sure. Okay, so we do know that Hero's out. Whether or not for sure Davion Mitchell is going to be active. And then it always seems like someone randomly will pop up on the injury report for the Heat. And so it is really tough to break down which players for the Heat that we should be on. At the same time, I will say I'm kind of okay riding the hot hand with Bam. Bam's been someone that's been going off recently. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys were paying attention throughout the game with Bam. We had his over 19.5 points, and I was and this happened with Donovan Mitchell as well. I was toying between the idea of betting on Donovan Mitchell for his over points or fantasy score, and I also was doing that with Bam with his over points or fantasy score. They both got their over fantasy score pretty early, and then I'm like, oh my god, there's nothing more painful than being on a more standard bet like that, prop type, and the fantasy score hitting. When it's like, oh, I could have kept it simple and bet on their fantasy score. So I was tilting there. Thankfully, he got it. And I was tilting because the game was looking like it could end up being a blowout. Ultimately, it wasn't a blowout. And well, it was, but he still got his minutes, which was nice to see. So we do have his line today at 18.5, which is one lower than what it was yesterday. And so I'm kind of okay riding the hot hand and not a terrible matchup in a matchup where the game total is going to be higher scoring. So Bam to get over 18.5 points. I really like this in a game stack. And part of the appeal for me is that I like a lot of the bets that we're getting for Chicago as well. So we like the splits again, really consistently getting the over there. Let's see, has he played Chicago? He has 18 in that game, only 29 minutes. And so again, this actually gets me to like the bet more because we haven't projected for 33 minutes. So if you give him 4 more minutes, you would expect him to be able to get that over. Worth calling out, his fantasy score does seem to be a little bit too low in this game as well. Did get the over fantasy score against them last time as well. And so if that bet ends up getting bumped, guys, it's 18.5 points. I think we just jump into his fantasy score and feel pretty good about that. And then we jump into Chicago. So Chicago's weird. I will say they are a little tough to figure out. And so I got to jump back into this real quick. So looking at the projected minutes, Kobe White projected for an uptick in minutes. Jalen Smith is really who I like, guys, projected for 3.8 more minutes. Vooch is someone that in games that stay close is pretty appealing. And the biggest question mark here is whether or not Trey Jones is going to play. If Trey Jones ends up sitting, we are getting some pretty good value in some bets, but it is risky. He sat on the front end of a back-to-back yesterday. So I tend to believe that a player like that, who did seem to be truly questionable, I tend to believe that he is going to end up being active in the back end of a back-to-back. And so that does give me a little bit of pause with some of the bets that I like for the Bulls. But I will say, guys, some of the lines that we're getting for Jalen Smith to me just don't make sense. The guy has been consistently getting his overs throughout this whole season, and he's projected for 24 minutes. Sure, he's going to have one-off games where it's bad, but this is a high-scoring game, a close game. We only have him projected for 24 minutes, and I will say probably accurate there. We don't like that part of it, but he's been someone where the lines have been consistently too low, especially if Trey Jones is out. That is very much a part of this bet. If Trey Jones is out, this ends up being a spot where we want to get to Jalen Smith. So a little bit of riding the hot hand there, but also I really like the appeal of him in the game stack. So we got Bam, Jalen Smith further over points. And I do like the idea of going back to the well with another player that we were on a decent amount when Josh Giddey was out because the lines were terrible. Okay. AO to get over his fantasy score to me is appealing. This is not the same situation at all, though, when Josh Giddey was out. Okay, I want to make that clear. When Josh Giddey was out, his lines were just trash. I really do not understand what happened there. It was just strange. You guys know by now, those lines were trash. It's not that situation, okay? It's a bet on Trey Jones being out, and it's a bet on the minutes continuing to be higher than what we've projected him for. And strangely enough, he's been seeing his shot attempts actually go up recently with Josh Giddey. So that's part of the appeal as well. And so you tack on the fact that this is a higher scoring game as well in a good matchup. That's what I'm chasing. I'm chasing all those variables together. Again, it's not the exact same situation as when Giddey was out. When Giddey was out, the lines were just bad. But Vegas is telling us that this fantasy score is not really the best line on Prize Picks right now as well. 51.3 for the over. I like that. Got the over against Miami the last time out. I'm okay getting to this. Hopefully it ends up getting more minutes than what we haven't projected yet. Again, that's more of a game stack bet. So we have 4 bets that I really like here in this game. So the last one, guys, would be Vooch. Him for over his fantasy score more specifically. Again, if you kind of just use underdog, off by 1 there. So always nice to get, an advantage between the sites. And obviously he's been someone that's been going off recently. What we don't like is that he has had some really randomly bad games in there. Against Miami was one of them. Only 21 minutes, guys. 14 fantasy points in that game. And so that is a concern to me. But at the same time, if we're just looking at a game stack bet here, I'd like these 4 a decent amount, or these 5. Kobe White is the player that I did have for his under fantasy score. Just hasn't been producing. And if Trey Jones does end up being active, guys, this is a bet that I like more. And so if you guys think Trey Jones ends up being active in this game, this would end up being a bet that you'd want to get to a little bit more. That's actually interesting. I wonder why they did that. Why would they take off Thompson? That's strange. And yes, I my brain went autocorrect there. Anyways, don't worry about it. Yeah, it was crazy. There was one day where he missed. I think we ended up being like I forget what it was. I feel like we hit his over at least 6 times throughout the month of January there with Giddy out. It was strange. That was fun. I called it the January discount from all the books. I think that's accurate. But yeah, these 5 bets, I think this is kind of the most appealing game that we're getting right now. News can change, but I think this is kind of the one that we want to be game stacking. So we'll go ahead and jump on into the next game here, guys. That'll be, yeah. I never really like breaking down Charlotte or Dallas these days, with Charlotte being healthier and Dallas just trying to figure out who's going to be active or out for them. So let's see here. Cooper Flagg, questionable. Klay Thompson, not projected for minutes, expected to sit. Anthony Davis out. Derek Lively out. We know that. Daniel Gafford, I kind of expect him to sit in this game just simply because he played yesterday, and it was more leaning that he might sit yesterday. So I think you just flip that. He'll be out. That's kind of what I'm expecting. But overall, it's not going to change any of the bets that we want to get to here. Like they're all a little bit too thin for me. So right now, this is a game that I'm staying away from. But I'll pull it up here for you guys. If there's any bets that you guys like, make sure to call those out in this game. We are getting a lot of the LaMelo Ball over bets that are popping. I don't really trust LaMelo Ball these days. Colin Sexton, I don't want to mess with as well with everyone being healthy. Then LaMelo, yeah, we're getting a lot of overs for LaMelo Ball, which are bets that I just personally do not really like here. But I mean, we are being told to place a lot of over bets here in this game, which I don't like. So Max Christie for his overs, we're being told to bet on. Ryan Kalkbrenner, who I don't want to bet on. PJ Washington, I would be more inclined to get to PJ Washington. Obviously, if Flagg and Gafford are out, that would really help him as well. That'd be the only one I would want to get to. Brandon Miller, he's been hot recently. If you guys want to continue the hot hand with him, I wouldn't mind that. It's a tougher matchup for him though, so not foolproof there. That'd probably be the only one I could get to. Khan, I didn't hate until I looked at his game log and I realized he's been kind of poor lately, and minutes haven't exactly been there for him. That's part of it. And then also part of it is just, I would argue it's a little bit of rookie regression. So I think you guys can see my lack of excitement for that game. I will jump into Brooklyn versus Denver. I will say Nolan here, I like for his overs if we get them, most likely. And so I hate saying that, but I think the lines that we'll get from him will be a little bit too low. Because Demon's going to be out, Thomas is out, Terrence Mann could sit, Clowney is out as well. And in situations like this in the past, his lines have been a little bit too low. He's not like a sexy player to bet on, but he is someone where I do think the lines will end up being a little bit too low. The issue is with Brooklyn is they're really spreading out the minutes, and so that makes it difficult. Like we only have Porter that's going to get significant run, and then other than that, it's tough to really project them. For Denver guys, Braun still out, Gordon still out, J-Val probable, Jamal Murray probable, Jokic still out, Cam Johnson still out as well. So there's not like any great values for Denver as well. 7.5 point spread, very low scoring game, 209.5. I mean, that is crazy. And yeah, I don't think we're getting any for Nolan yet, which again, I don't like. There was one player that I was kind of fine riding with, Bruce Brown, about a 50.7% chance for him to get his over fantasy score. He's been playing well the last 3 games. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Projected for 19 minutes. I hope he ends up getting more than that. And if he does, that's the spot that I want to get to. So I'm kind of fine riding with that. But that's really it in that game, guys. And then Phoenix versus Detroit. I didn't see anything that I liked there. I really didn't. So we'll jump into the last game, guys. There's one bet that I liked here. Worth calling out. It is a close game, 6.5 point spread, 225 game total there. So like theoretically we should be getting these good bets for OKC, but the last couple of slates I told you guys to bet on SGA and Kenrich Williams, and they've been very big disappointments. SGA has been pretty bad the last couple of games. Kenrich Williams just had a poor shooting night 2 nights ago, or 2 slates ago when they were on the slate. And then the previous slate, the other bigs were kind of playing well, so he didn't get as many minutes. And so I really think we just don't mess with OKC right now. Just the vibes are off there, bad spots for them just in general. So the only player I like in this game is actually going to be looking at Naz Reid. I will say there are a decent amount of over bets for this game that we're being told to bet on, but I kind of like only Naz Reid to get over 12.5 points. But this one only has a 52% chance for that to hit. And part of the appeal for me is riding with the hot hand. Part of it is that he has gone the over in the last time out against them. Not a perfect bet by any means, given the matchup, but I still like that over a decent amount there. And so kind of a quicker video here for you guys. We'll go ahead and get on into the bet of the day here for today by showing you guys just the selected bets only. And what's interesting that I've noticed is that Underdog and Prize Picks have been much better about their fantasy score lines. They haven't been as egregiously bad lately, but I still think we're getting some pretty good spots. So I'm going to try to dial this down into my top 6 bets, but I think it's worth calling and showing these other bets to you guys as well still. So I kind of like the idea of doing the Chicago-Miami stack, guys. So I'm actually going to take the Kobe White under off. I don't mind the idea of getting to Daniels. Also, though, it really does depend on whether or not Johnson's active. Maybe we don't get to that one for now. Still like it. Rollins, I do like that over. It's tough to reduce these down. Get off of Paul George for now. Get off of Westbrook for now. Nas, I do like. Tougher matchup, though, so I'm just trying to reduce it down to my top 6. Again, I really like the Bulls. So we're going to get to Vooch, Jalen Smith, Bam, Ayo. And then we need 2 more. I think I do really like Bruce Brown, and I do really like these 2 as well. But I think just going with the 2 Bucks players as additional stacks, I like that. No, we could get to Middleton still. I feel like that line's still too low. I already got my action in on that at 23.5. That's always tough about giving advice, is when you already have a bet at a number, to readjust, to recalibrate like that. I still think it's a good bet, but it's definitely more accurate. And I do like Bruce Brown for over 18.5, but we'll do this. We'll do these. So we got like a little bit of a 6-lit bet here with the game stack, guys. It's not a perfect bet, but this will be the 9 to 5 bet of the day for today, guys. And that'll do it for this live stream. So appreciate everyone being in here. Make sure to leave a like on your way out. If you guys haven't, subscribe to the channel as well. Appreciate you guys being here. If you guys would like access to it.